Those who inspire us through both their actions and their words are truly remarkable people. And on this edition of Be Inspired, we're going to meet someone who has done just that. Hi again, I'm Bert Baron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And we welcome you to Be Inspired, where we bring to you real stories from people just like you and I, who share stories of love and loss, struggles and perseverance, even laughter and tears, and overcoming adversity. This time around on Be Inspired, we're joined by someone who holds a clinical doctorate in physical therapy, 30 years as an EMT, which I'm really fascinated by, and as an author as well. She's written some very inspiring books. Let me please welcome Andrea Jo Rodgers to Be Inspired. Welcome. Great to have you with us here.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
This EMT work, I get nauseous putting a Band-Aid on. You must have some incredible stories when it comes to saving lives and being there for people at their most harrowing moments, if you will.
I do, and I feel like I've been so fortunate to witness so many amazing things, and that was part of the reason I wrote the books, to try to share with other people what stories that might comfort them, inspire them, help them to see that whatever they're going through, there's probably someone else going through the same thing, so they're not alone.
You know, this is something very near and dear to me, Bert, because you know my son Corey, my youngest, is just graduated FDNY Academy.
Wonderful.
Yes, he's an EMT in the South Bronx.
Wow.
So talk about stories, and you know, it's something you said, we were talking before, and you're just so inspired by the career as an EMT. After 30 years, you don't have the typical hardness. Okay, that's what my son said. He said, these guys are seasoned. And I guess when the new people come on, you know, they're wide-eyed and we're going to save everyone.
Right.
And the folks that have been EMTs for years kind of develop that, you know, the hard, tough shell because
Right.
they've seen so much. But you really, that hasn't
Well, being a volunteer
happened,
also,
yeah.
it's a choice we make.
Yeah,
You know, we put
that's
time
true.
aside because we want to help other people.
Yeah.
Where did it begin for you, Andrea? Was it just a simple need to help other people? Because we hear from so many people in a similar line of work of yours, first responders and those who, when there's a building on fire, everyone's running from the building. There's a very special group of people that run towards that building. Is that how it kind of started for you, just wanting to help?
Not really.
Not really,
I
okay.
was actually working as an office clerk at the beach, and one of the special officers came in and he said, "We need you to join the first aid squad in town." And I said, no. I was in high school. I was busy. I did sports. I was working at the beach. For every reason I gave him that I didn't want to join, I didn't know anything about first aid. I didn't even drive yet. He had an excuse for why I should join. And eventually he went out because I couldn't think of an excuse good enough to satisfy him. So I ended up joining the first aid squad as a cadet right before my senior year of high school.
Wow, that takes incredible sacrifice, too, because when you're a member, even if it's volunteer, you really do dedicate a lot of time and a lot of holidays. You know, you're called away.
Right.
3 a.m. when it's snowing out in the morning, you're called away. So you didn't realize at the time what a commitment you were making.
It can be tough. My
Yeah.
dad used to joke, why is it always during dinner? You know, why is it always during the
I'm
holiday
sure.
gatherings? But you learn to prioritize. And, you know, sometimes family has to come first, and sometimes the victim has to come first. And my family gets that.
Yeah,
You know?
that's important, too, if you have that support at home. It must have been tough, too, raising children, going through, you know, being married and then having a career
Right.
as a
It's
physical
very
therapist.
busy life.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure.
I work part-time. I'm a physical therapist. I specialize in women's health and lymphedema, as well as orthopedics. So that keeps my mornings busy. And then in the afternoon, I come home, and then it's time to take care of the dogs, the kids, the sport activities, and then the first aid squad.
Phew, I'm tired just
Yeah,
listening to
yeah.
it.
And writing books.
Yes.
Sure. Share an example, if you would, where if it were not for Andrea and her level of training and her confidence and her skill, where someone might have lost their lives. I'm sure you've encountered that numerous times over your years as a volunteer EMT.
Well, I'll tell you a story from the first book, and it's such a story about how things just seem to come together in a certain way. We were on a first aid call. I just happened to take off from work that day. I was pretty new on the squad. And we had a first aid call for a person who had collapsed on the boardwalk. And so we rushed into the ambulance, we were arriving on the scene, and we had just started carrying defibrillators at that time. And so I got out the defibrillator. Actually, my partner got it out. He said, oh my God, there was a malfunction with it. There was a piece stuck in it so that it rendered it useless. And he said, oh my gosh, we're going to have to send back another. He sent a driver back to get the other ambulance to get another defibrillator. The police didn't carry them at that time. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to cause such a delay. We'll lose our chance of resuscitating whoever this person is. So I grabbed the defibrillator and I put it in my mouth and I chewed on it and I ripped the piece out with my teeth.
There you go.
And then I was like, I think I fixed it. We rushed onto the boardwalk, put on the defibrillator, shocked him. And after several shocks, he regained his pulse. But he was not responsive. He was still completely unresponsive. And we were breathing for him. And I remember his wife walked up. They had separated on the boardwalk. And she walked up and she said, she looked in and she said, that's my husband. I recognize his shorts. So I walked her to the ambulance and got her in the front seat. And on the way to the hospital, he stayed unresponsive. And that actually went on for more than a week. And one day my mom was swimming in the pool with her pool friends, and she heard that he had woken up. She called me up at work. She said, your man woke up. So I went to visit him, and he was sitting there reading the newspaper. And it was just such a beautiful thing to witness. And
what a story.
We stayed in touch. And in fact, when I wrote the first book, she was one of the first people I told about it and gave her a copy of the book.
Isn't that wonderful? Not only did you bring him back to life, but you used him now in a book. So that is an incredible series of events. And I love that. You just rip something off. That's how I open most things in my house. I just rip them open with my teeth. And it worked. That is incredible.
I'm sure there's situations where it's like you just do what you have to do, right? And necessity is the mother of invention sometimes. And
exactly.
You've probably been in countless examples like that, too. For a young person that might want to consider being an EMT, any sage words of advice for someone who might want to consider kind of following in your footsteps?
I would say definitely volunteer. It's such a worthwhile opportunity. And for example, with our first aid squad, you don't need any experience. You can join the squad as an observer and ride with the ambulance, try to get a feel for whether you like it or not. If you do, then we'll certify you in CPR, basic first aid, and send you to EMT class. So it's really an investment of, just your time.
Yeah, and I think in this social media age, it's nice for kids to see another side of life, the real side of life. When did you know, Andrea, that you wanted to put your stories into a book? And by the way, these are your beautiful books here, and you've got a couple more there. So when did you know that you wanted to start writing?
Well, I'll tell you how it started. It was a beautiful day in October, and my son was almost 3 at the time. And I took him to the eye doctor for a follow-up visit. And when we finished, I decided, let's take the elevator. Now, normally I'm a stair person. I'm a physical therapist. So, but we got into the elevator together. And I remember he was learning his numbers at the time. So we pressed the number 1 button. And the ride started off fine. And then all of a sudden, there was a horrible crash and this terrible grinding metallic noise. And I didn't know what was happening. Water started gushing in underneath the elevator doors.
Oh.
And I started screaming for help. And I picked my son up into my arms. And I was pressing the buttons, trying to get the doors to open, just screaming. And the water just kept rising. And I thought, we are surely going to die. We're going to drown.
Gosh.
And I couldn't believe it. It was my 7th wedding anniversary. And I thought, the things flash through your mind when you think you're about to die. I thought, I can't believe this is how it's all going to end, like this.
Oh, gosh.
And then all of a sudden, our guardian angels in action, the doors slowly opened, and we had landed in a dark basement full of water. And I could make out the outline of a door, so I waded through the water with Thomas in my arms and climbed up the stairs. Of course, I'm crying, and I didn't even see the door for the first floor. I ended up back on the 2nd floor, and I went back into the office, and they're confused because I'm all wet, I'm crying, and all I was saying was like the elevator, and so they ended up having to call the fire department, and the fire department came. They evacuated the entire building. It was a big medical building. And the fire chief said it was due to the severe electrical hazard in the basement. And I thought we were going to drown. It didn't even occur to me that we were nearly electrocuted. And I just felt like by the grace of God, we lived.
I thought you were going to say you were sitting under a tree in a park one day and decided to write a book.
Yeah.
But no, this story,
I'll tell you, when you
what
have
an incredible
those kind
story.
of experiences, it really makes you take stock of your life.
Yeah.
And I thought about my relationship with God, my family, my friends, all my hopes and dreams. And I thought, well, one of my goals was to write a book. So the accident actually inspired me to start writing. So
I believe it.
No matter how terrible something is at the time, you can find something good to take from it.
Which Andrea took over that day? Was it the mom or the EMT?
I think a mixture of both. My son had never heard me cry before or scream like that. So he was in shocked silence. And I was glad that I was able to at least, keep it together enough to be able to get us out. And actually, someone heard us screaming, and they were the ones who called 911. And I thought, I'm supposed to be the one to answer 911 calls, not be the 911 call.
Wow.
So,
what an incredible story. And yeah, sometimes it does take something life-altering to jolt you into the next phase of your life. It really is.
When we come back, we'll spend some more time with our guest, Andrea Jo Rodgers. I want to learn more about the books and how people can still get their hands on them. Be inspired. First, we want to recognize Photo Center in Brick, family-owned and operated since 1977. Photo Center carries a full line of digital cameras, camera accessories, and hosts photo classes and workshops. For more info on Photo Center in Brick, it's available by going to photocenter.com. Also, thanks to Chain Gang Pro Performance Clothing, a new local company focused on providing activewear for your active moments. Check out their story and line of products at chaingangpro.com or follow their journey on Instagram or Facebook by searching Chain Gang Pro. Be Inspired would also like to thank our sponsor, Mike Obertlich from Keller Williams in Shrewsbury. Mike Obertlich services Monmouth and Ocean County, so if you plan on moving to Monmouth County, you got to go to Mo. You can list or sell your home by calling Mike Obertlich at 908-216-0551. Hashtag gotta go to Mo, a realtor you grow to love. Andrea Jo Rodgers is with us here on Be Inspired. 30-plus years EMT work, a mom, and also a published author, too. Andrea, was it people constantly telling you, you should write a book someday?
Yeah, people said it from time to time, but when I first thought about writing the book, I knew I wanted to write one, but I didn't know what to write about. And I really thought about it, and eventually I thought, you know what? Let me write about my first aid experiences. And at the time, my husband said, you know what, even if it never goes anywhere, one day our family will have a record of, what you've been up to.
Yeah.
And I never expected it to go so far. So I would say to people, follow your dreams. With my books, I found a literary agent. He gave me advice about how to improve my proposal. And I took his advice to heart. I basically rewrote the book, and then he offered to represent me, and that's how I was fortunate enough to find the contract with Harvest House. And in fact, last week, I just got offered a contract for a third book. So,
wow, that is incredible. You also wrote a middle-age school books.
Yes.
Saving Mount Rushmore and
Saving the Statue of Liberty.
That's right.
So that's for the middle grade crowd.
Yeah.
They're just fun action-adventure stories about a group of children who work together to save some of our national treasures.
Do you go around to different schools and show the
Sometimes.
books? Yeah, that's always fun.
Yep.
Yeah, to do. And they say, wow, your mom's an EMT, right?
Fun.
Do you think you'll work as an EMT till you can't do it anymore?
I hope to.
Yeah.
And we have members on our squad who have been on they were on over 50 years, at the time that they passed.
I think it's in your blood, don't
Right.
you? Doesn't it get,
Sorry.
and it's a tight-knit
They're like family.
Group. Yeah, totally like family. I think it's that way with all of our first responders, which, by the way, we want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of our first responders out there. And what an incredible story you have to tell, Andrea. And I'm glad your guardian angels opened the elevator door that day for you. Wow.
Absolutely. The process for you, Andrea, they say you have your whole life to write your first book and 6 months to write your second one. Is it something that you had to work at, or was writing maybe a little easier than you thought it would be?
Well, I'll tell you what. When I was in high school, my mom gave me such great advice. She said, you should keep a journal of the calls that are special to you. And so I did. And when I decided to write the book, I went up into my attic all those years later and I reread the journal entries, and it was like the people came back to life again. So without the journal, I would not have been able to write the book with such detail.
When you first start out as an EMT, you must, like you said, you get training on the job. Is there a certain level of fear when you go into it, like your first job? Like, what if something happens? And is there a certain level of sadness when a patient does expire?
There's definitely a level of sadness when someone expires. And especially when I first joined the squad before defibrillators, it was so much harder to resuscitate someone. So it was, and especially if it's a young person or a child, that's particularly difficult for me. But the times that you actually do make a difference are so wonderful. And I see these people around town and just seeing them like with their grandchildren or younger people getting on with their lives and doing things. And some of them have come to my book talks at local libraries to surprise me. And it's such a blessing to me.
I think you're a blessing to them, too. I think the world needs more Andreas, don't you, Bert?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the defibrillators, too, because I know now they're in the schools. We see them in the schools all across our state, and now we're even seeing them in these very sort of remote athletic fields where there's football and soccer camps, which in some cases having this equipment available saves lives.
Just a few weeks ago, I went to one of the local women's clubs, and I brought our defibrillators from the squad, and I said, you might need to use them one day. You know, you familiarize yourself with it.
Sure.
And then it's not so frightening. Right. There are voice prompts to take you through, but if you've seen it before, then you can say, I got this. I can do this.
Come to think of it, I would have no clue how to use that.
Some words of inspiration as we draw the program to a close. Andrea, young people, girls and boys that might want to follow your path and help others and maybe write a book about it someday. What would you say to them?
I would say be open to suggestions and follow your heart. If you think you want to try something, give it a try. Volunteer a little bit. See if it's for you in whatever field it is. I think the community needs more people just looking out for each other and helping out and being there for each other.
Very well said. We agree 100%.
Yeah, whatever avenue you choose.
Online retailers, book and mortar stores, where do we find your books?
Yes, so it's you can look at my website, AndreaJoRodgers.com, has links to the different vendors. It's also where choice books are sold. That's the inspirational book racks in airports and drugstores and places like that.
Very inspiring stuff today, Andrea. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have you on Be Inspired, and we hope to talk again soon and keep up the amazing work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea.
All right, I'm Bert Baron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And thank you for joining us on Be Inspired. Hosted by Lisa Anderson and Bert Baron. Director of Production, Rod Weber. Executive Producers, Rod Weber and Sean M. Sternberg. Creator and Executive Producer, Michael R. Doyle. Also, thanks to Chain Gang Pro Performance Clothing, Michael O'Bertlick from Keller Williams, and the Photo Center in Brick.